Is Sony working on PS3 emulation after all? LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga reviews are in and they are really good. There was a big Naughty Dog leak, more studio purchases are coming, and take advantage of this PS Plus glitch while you can. So the dust is still settling on the whole PS Plus revamp. Some people are excited, some people are upset, but not everyone is super happy about it. The one thing people really want out of this whole emulation thing that's coming to the PS5 is PS3 games, because, you know, that's one of Sony's best generations, and entire franchises like the Resistance franchise and most of the Infamous franchise and a big Metal Gear Solid game, Metal Gear Solid 4, they're all just being left to rot on the PS3, and that sucks, because streaming just isn't a good solution for most people, myself included. But thankfully, it seems like Sony is listening, because according to Jeff Grubb in his Grubb Snacks podcast, they are actively working on PS3 emulation on the PS5. He said, "Since talking about this all week, I've looked, I've asked, it sounds like Sony might be working on emulation for PS3 on PS5. It may take some time, I wish they could just come out and tell us that. Tell us that you care about this stuff, because that's what's missing from the PS Plus announcement." It seems like they didn't care about any of it, they just slapped it together, put a new name on it, and sold it. Now I know that sounds a little harsh, but I kind of agree with him. They didn't really tell us about any of the games that are going to be coming to this massive library they're going to be including. Of course, they did talk about stuff like Miles Morales and Returnal, but those are some of the earliest PS5 games we ever got, and they've both been on sale multiple times for as low as like $10, so that's not really the biggest inclusion ever, especially when you're paying $120 a year for this service. And while it is cool that we're getting PS2 games and PSP games and PS1 games emulated on the PS5, it really sucks you gotta pay for a subscription to get those. I know some people are trying to justify it, but to me, there's no justification for someone like me who has spent hundreds of dollars on PS1 classics, PSP classics, PS2 classics, on my PS3, PS4, and PS Vita respectively. It's the exact same PlayStation Store on the PS5. We've even seen PS3 games showing up on the PS5 PlayStation Store. There's no reason for these games not to be included without a subscription. Either way, Sony is usually really good about listening to feedback and actively implementing changes based on that feedback. I just wish in the future they would stop making the worst move possible so they can work their way back up with their fans and just make a good consumer-focused move out of the gate. They were really good at this stuff during the PS3 generation, and the only difference I can find between that generation and the one we're currently in is that they weren't on top. So maybe this ground that Xbox is closing between them and Sony is actually a good thing. Guys, I'm cutting into this story real quick to do the classic YouTuber thing and let you know that I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers. We are so close. So if you watch the channel, you like the videos, help me out by hitting that red subscribe button and setting your notifications to all. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is finally here, and the reviews are really good. Pretty much every site out there gave it either a 4 out of 5, an 8 out of 10, or a 9 out of 10, and I've even seen a couple 10 out of 10. I was really excited for this game for a couple reasons. The first one being that I used to play the first LEGO Star Wars, like the very first one on GameCube way back in the day with my brother, and then I got the second one for my birthday from my grandpa the year it came out on PSP, and that is where the series really took off for me. I played that game so much, I 100%ed it multiple times, I found all the red bricks, I loved unlocking all the different characters, it was just an absolute blast. I kind of fell off over the years, but just some of the stuff they're doing in this new LEGO Star Wars game is crazy. There's over 20 planets that have their own little open worlds, they have a ton of characters that I really like the Mandalorian, obviously. You can fly ships around in open space and find space battles. I love flying around X-Wing, so it's really cool when you get to do it in this game. And of course, it's bringing back some of the best voice actors that Star Wars has ever had, like Sam Witwer to play Palpatine, which is awesome. The only real issue with the game seems to be that it gets a little repetitive over time. My friend Jake Baldino over at Game Ranks in his Before You Buy video said that, yeah, he loves Star Wars, so he was able to get through this thing with having a ton of fun the entire time, but he started skipping some of the collectathon aspects and some of the side stuff towards the end just because, you know, there's way too much of it. I guess that's kind of expected though when you look at a game that's spanning 9 full Star Wars movies and has content coming on top of that. There's just a ton to do in this game, so if you're one of those people who likes to get bang for your buck, this seems like the best game to do it. I've been playing it myself, I'm pretty early on in the game, but so far it's exactly what I wanted it to be. It's not exactly exceeding my expectations, it's just meeting them, which is perfect because my expectations were really high. The one thing I want them to add in the future though is some Bad Batch levels, some Clone Wars levels, and it'd be really cool if they figured out how to build like a version of Batuu, the planet that Galaxy's Edge takes place in Disneyland. I like exploring it, but I want to see it in the Star Wars universe, you know? But yeah, after many, many delays and a really long wait, LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is here, and I'm just glad it's living up to people's insane expectations. This whole initiative that Sony has to make sure they have games coming out alongside the TV shows and movies they're working on in universes like The Last of Us, Uncharted, and Ghost of Tsushima seems to be going decently, I would say, so far. They just had the Uncharted movie come out, and the Legacy of Thieves collection came to PS5 at the same time, and it looks like we're getting a remake of The Last of Us coming out around the same time as the TV show, but that leaves the question open, what else is Naughty Dog working on? Well, a big leak from a trusted leaker has basically told us that they have 3 games in active development, and they're not considering that remake of The Last of Us 1 one of those games. The first game we've known about for a while, it's basically a full-on standalone multiplayer game set in The Last of Us 2's universe. There's been a huge leak from that showing Ellie in her multiplayer armor. It's really cool. Apparently that started out as a battle royale game, and it basically got scrapped and they started over, and now it's more like The Division or Escape from Tarkov, which is music to my ears. I love these games where you drop into a map, you scavenge for supplies, you try to find loot, and then you extract before someone either PvP or PvE manages to kill you. Those games are some of my absolute favorites. I love The Division 2 as well. And the best part is it's going to have PvP modes that are separate from this open world area, allegedly, if these leaks are to be believed. And one of those PvP modes is going to be the factions multiplayer from The Last of Us Part 1, which if you've never played it, is some of the best and scariest PvP action you can have. It makes 3v3 action where you're kind of in a level that's a linear level. It's not really that open world, so you kind of have to encounter people. It makes that scary, visceral, and fun. I'm super excited for it. The second game they have in development is also really interesting to me. It's a fantasy game, and the reason that's interesting is because if you look at what Naughty Dog's been doing the past couple generations, they've been making third-person shooters between Uncharted and The Last of Us. But when you think about fantasy, while yeah, you could use something like a crossbow, there's not going to be a ton of guns or third-person shooting action. They're going to have to figure out the melee side of things, which is cool because the melee stuff in both Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2, while light, is pretty visceral and has some impact. So I'd like to see them expand that and make it the core focus of a game. And it's like the one genre Naughty Dog hasn't really focused on before. I know you can kind of count Jak and Daxter, that series, as fantasy, but it's more of a mascot platformer. It's not really a full-on dark fantasy game, and I'm glad they're branching out and doing new things after The Last of Us Part 2. But they're not completely giving up on that universe because the third game they're allegedly working on is The Last of Us Part 3. They have a whole script outline done, but I would say that one's going to be pretty far down the line. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a capstone game for the PS5 generation, just like The Last of Us Part 1 was for the PS3 generation and The Last of Us Part 2 was for the PlayStation 4 generation. But if you take the entire studio roster Sony has, obviously by default Bungie is kind of my favorite, but I don't think they really count since they're still technically making third-party games for the Xbox and PC. So if you look at the first-party studio landscape, Naughty Dog is by far not only my favorite, I just think they're also the best. I think Santa Monica Studio does some great stuff, but Naughty Dog is just a little bit better in my opinion. So I'm gonna play anything that studio puts out. So we just got the announcement that Sony is buying Haven Studios, a studio that they partnered with to make a second-party exclusive game. Obviously, they were pretty happy with what that studio is working on because they went ahead and purchased the entire thing. Now, back when Bungie was purchased, Sony said they weren't done buying studios just yet, and then they picked up this studio, and it seems like they're still not done yet because behind the scenes, statements are being made that Sony is going to pick up more studios. Now, there's no word on who those studios might be at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to buy some of the studios working on some of the Konami IP. We know that there is apparently a remake of the original Metal Gear Solid in place. It would be really cool if Sony was able to buy Konami as a whole, because yeah, while it would suck for Xbox to lose a lot of their IP like Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid, you know, the list goes on, Silent Hill, a lot of those games in people's minds are synonymous with PlayStation, and that's crazy considering most of the Metal Gear Solid franchise is not playable on the PlayStation 5 right now, but is completely playable over on the Xbox Series X. That's just the reality of the situation, and even knowing that, people still associate Metal Gear Solid with the PlayStation. So Sony really should just pick up Konami, because that would give them a ton of IP they could really make some awesome first-party games with on the PlayStation 5 exclusively, to really help bolster their console and get more first-party games out to combat Game Pass Ultimate, which is getting new games literally every month. From Software is obviously an easy pick. There were so many rumors that Sony was going to pick them up, and then none of them really came true. To me personally, From Software has kind of outgrown Sony. Sony would probably have to pay a lot for them after the massive success of Elden Ring. I really wish it would happen though, so they can go back and fix Bloodborne, because it runs like absolute dog on both the PS4 and PS5. They just put that game out, let it run like crap, and then just abandon it. It just does not work all that well anymore. And to me, that's my favorite From Software game. So it would be great if Sony would pick them up and then make them fix that game. And then finally, it would just be awesome if they picked up Kojima Productions and Konami and then took the IP from Metal Gear and Silent Hill, gave it to Hideo Kojima, and then we finally got the full game of PT that we never got, because Sony and Capcom are really the only two companies out there actually making horror games right now, and I want to see more support from Sony in that front. Those are my easy picks for what Sony should buy next. Make sure you let me know what you think down in the comments below. And now for this story, we're going back to the whole PS Plus thing, but this is a really good reason to talk about it, because there's currently a glitch going on that you should really take advantage of. So PS Plus Premium, when it launches this June, is going to cost $120 a year, which is absolutely nuts. And that's the way you're going to want to buy it, because if you do it in the monthly form, it's going to end up costing more than $120 a year, which is obviously that full year subscription. But right now, there's an easy way to get it even cheaper for around half off, $59.99 a year. And that's just by buying a year subscription to PlayStation Plus. Now, this deal has been going in and out of availability. That was kind of hard to say. I've been following the Wario64 Twitter, because when it is available, you can get a year of PlayStation Plus for $60 and you can stack it. So you can buy it as many times as you want. So if you've got like a couple $100 laying around, you could buy the next 4 years of PlayStation Plus now, and then in June, when it upgrades to premium, you'll basically be getting 4 years of premium for half off. But at the very least, you should just buy a year and make sure you have a subscription, because you want to be able to test this service out. If you get it for a year half off and you don't like it, you're not losing $120, you're just losing $60, and that's just good business sense, because you need PlayStation Plus regardless to play online and collect these free games. And at the very least, you're getting that 300 plus game library at launch. So if you've been waiting for some stuff to buy on your PlayStation 5, but you don't really have the funds right now, I would allocate what you have to get a subscription and then take advantage of that free game library while you have the subscription for at least a year. Like, either way, you're probably going to subscribe to PlayStation Plus at some point if you have a PS5, so do it on the cheap while you still can.